And now I'm excited to kick off today's event, Finding Flexibility, Creating a Career That Works for You. This is sponsored by New York Life Agents, and we're thrilled to be joined by three leaders at New York Life Agents, Ronnie Benjamin, Shannon Boyd, and Roseanne Estrada. Let's kick it off by taking a minute to introduce yourselves. Please tell us what's going on in your world today, professionally and personally. Ronnie, let's start with you.
Thank you. Well, excuse my beautiful golden doodle in the background. She just got excited. It must have been the Fairygodboss. But my name is Ronnie Benjamin, Tally now, newlywed. But I'm from Queens, New York City. That's my where I was born and raised by an awesome single mother in Astoria projects. And although I've come from humble beginnings and a slew of childhood trauma, I've always had this deep desire to leave a footprint on this earth. And so a few years back, I made a commitment that I would live full and die empty, meaning all my skills, natural or developed, my talents, all that will be used to the fullest extent until I took my last breath. And so I managed to become a published author, screenwriter, actress, and a film producer. And I'm also, like I said, a newlywed. I'm a mother of two amazing kids. One is 15 and one is 23. And as a registered representative with New York Life, I help professionals and entrepreneurs set clear financial goals and then get a plan in place to take them from where they are today to where they want to be in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and beyond. So that's me.
Wow, so much to dig into later, Ronnie. Thank you for that. Shannon, how about you?
Yes, so I'm originally from Mississippi, as you guys can probably pick up from the accent. I am newly back, I guess, from vacation last week, and first time going out of the country since COVID. So that was an experience all in itself. I'm currently in Houston, Texas right now. Our management team is doing some training and things with New York Life currently. So I don't quite have the normal background that I have or the lighting that I have. So I do normally look a little better than the washed out look that I have right now. So you guys, I apologize for that. But I'm married. I have a 10-year-old little girl and a 9-month-old little girl. And we are knee deep in year-round swim currently right now. And so that's a little bit about me. I don't want to jump the gun and give too much. No published author here. I promise nobody wants to hear too much from me, and especially in a book. But yes, originally from Mississippi. I've been with New York Life for 14 years now. 12 of those have been management. But started as an agent with New York Life out of our Mississippi office. Currently reside in Knoxville, Tennessee, but in Houston currently right now.
You look great, Shannon. Thank you for that introduction. Roseanne, last but not least.
Hello, everybody. I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm part of the Dallas office, but I actually live in deep East Texas, over here in Lindale, Texas. So just a little ways. Married, have 3 beautiful kids, all mine. My baby just graduated high school, so mine are just a little bit older. Almost an empty nester. He's decided to go locally to school, which makes me super happy. I was on vacation last week trying to get back into the routine, back into the grill here. But been with New York Life, started in December 2010. Love what I do, came from a very different background, and definitely excited to be on a panel with such amazing ladies.
Well, I'm really excited about our discussion today, and I, like all of you, am also a mother of 3. Fairygodboss is my last baby. We're the largest career community for women, and today I want to remind everyone joining in from our community that we'll be answering questions directly from you, and so please submit your questions on the chat to the right, and we'll do our best to respond to as many as we can. Okay, so you've all given us a little flavor of the fact that you've been at New York Life, most of you, for a while. What were you doing prior to joining New York Life? Can you talk about why you ultimately decided to join the company? Let's start with you, Roseanne.
So I actually was a photographer in my past life. Went to school for it. I knew how to make the thin women look a little bit fluffier, the fluffy women look a little bit thinner. And then iPhones came up and Best Buy started selling all the cameras and everybody thought they were professional. And what attracted me to New York life was the flexibility. So I was always an entrepreneur, always worked for myself. So I liked my flexibility. I liked controlling my calendar. And that really attracted me to New York life and the opportunities it would give me. So it's helped me go from a very easy transition of taking care of people, serving people, and trying to make that impact. I mean, in the past, my pictures were on the walls for generations to come. Now what I'm doing here is helping financially generations to come. So.
Great. And Ronnie, what about you? Why did you decide to join New York Life?
Sure. Well, prior to New York Life, I was an account manager for a Fortune 500 software company. I mean, very popular if I tell you the name. But what I did every day was I haggled with CPAs and accountants about the price of the tax software every year, even though I knew they would write it off as a business expense every year. But one day my manager asked a question, and to this day, it still hits me in the heart. He said, "Are you doing the best work of your life?" Now, I told you all what I did, right? So no, my answer was absolutely no. But it literally sent me on this, I guess, a quest to figure out what was the best work of my life, right? So for 2 years, I did some personal development. I went on my journey and I walked away from my corporate job in hopes of starting my own business, Ronnie Uplifts LLC. And I did this in December 2019. Now, y'all know what happened just a couple months after that, right? COVID hit, changed everything for me. But it was interesting that as I was walking away from my corporate job, I knew that I needed financial education. I knew that I needed information on budgeting and health insurance and life insurance and having my own retirement strategy. And hey, if I become disabled, what would that look like on my own? I knew I needed help with estate plan and wills, trust, right? And so New York Life found me. I had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn, and they found me, and they literally sat me down and taught me, and I learned concepts that was so foreign to me. And I said, wow, I can be a resource for other women who are considering walking away from their corporate jobs and need a financial foundation in place, right? And so, you know, that did it for me. And thankfully, New York Life gave me the freedom and to do all that I wanted to do, be myself authentically. As you can tell, I have this huge personality, and they didn't say, all right, Ronnie, calm it down. No, they let me be my 100% authentic self. And I was unapologetic about it. And so it allowed me to reach the people that I knew only I could reach, right? And then the added incentive, besides, of course, the unlimited income I was able to make, but it also allowed me to still act and still write and still serve on the board of a nonprofit organization that's near and dear to my heart. And so I was able to do all those things without compromise. And so to this day, I'm grateful for that LinkedIn reach out.
Amazing. Thank you. Shannon, what about you? What got you to join New York Life 14 years ago?
Can I stop going after Ronnie? I feel like my answers aren't good enough after Ronnie. So I was originally in the medical field. I was in the nursing role. And so I was helping people. I wanted to be in a people environment. I wanted to work with people, feel like I made a difference. And so certainly, obviously, was able to do that in the medical field. But unfortunately, I was working nights and weekends and holidays. And my husband and I were to the point of having conversations about starting a family. And I just couldn't marry the two together, right? I couldn't make my professional career and home life look the way that I thought that's what I wanted it to look like. And so ultimately joined in 2008 with New York Life. I'll be very quick to tell you a quick story, but my brother called me and he said, well, I was originally thinking about pharmaceutical sales or medical device sales. I felt like I had a personality that I could do sales, but I'd never done it before. So I didn't have any kind of brag book of experience or success. And so my brother said, he called me and he said, hey, Shannon, why don't you come interview with New York Life? And I said, heck no, right? Like no interest, I didn't think whatsoever. I'd never taken a finance class. I'd never taken a business class. If it wasn't related to biology or chemistry, I had not participated in it from a college standpoint. And so anyway, he didn't listen. He gave my name and number to a gentleman that called me, and he wasn't family, so I couldn't tell him no quite as easily as I told my brother. And so anyway, I came in for the interview, and I'll be very honest with you, I don't think I understood half of what he told me or what he was saying to me in the interview. But I thought, gosh, if half of what he's telling me is true, gosh, it's way better than what I'm currently doing if it really truly comes to flexibility, right? That was a key word to me. And I promise they didn't pay us to say flexibility, right? They didn't come to us and say, talk about flexibility, but truly for me, just in where our conversations were as a family, in starting a family, flexibility or control of my schedule was a huge, huge thing. Absolutely first and foremost of what I was looking for. The opportunity to make more money, to get out of a situation where we were being newlyweds and doing the whole, can we do such and such? Well, I don't know. Let's check our checking account to see if we can, right? Has our check cleared? Can we go do this now? Right? Just living that life. So the opportunity for income. And then also what I didn't realize I was looking for, but quickly was plugged into it after starting with New York Life, was the opportunity to move into management. And whether or not that would be an impact for me or something where I kind of felt like I was being drawn to. And so those are the three things that ultimately led me to New York Life: flexibility, opportunity from an income standpoint to really make the life that we ultimately wanted to live. And then the second or the third thing would have been the opportunity for management after getting here.
Got it. And Shannon, your request is going to come true in a moment, because I'm going to ask the next question starting with you.
Perfect.
We've all been talking a lot about flexibility as really attractive about working at New York Life as an agent. Can you talk to me? This is my favorite question. What is a typical day, or if it's a week that's more appropriate of a time frame? What does that look like for each of you? And Shannon, please get us off the ground.
That's an easy one. You threw me an easy one. So for me, being in the role that I'm in currently from a managing partner's role, Mondays is typically a training type day. We bring a lot of our agents either into the office or obviously a hybrid environment now with different platforms to be able to connect. And so training day is a lot of times Mondays. I'll give you a little bit of feedback on that. I was taught early on, whether it's right or wrong, right? I was taught that in this field, right, especially when I was an agent, that Mondays everybody hated life, right? And in general, right, not in just this career, just in general, people hated life on Mondays because they enjoyed the weekends and they didn't want to get back to it on Mondays. And so I thought, well, gosh, I don't want to go out and deal with people on Mondays. Right? I don't want to go out and prospect and do those things on Mondays. And so it just turned into a training day. It was bring everybody in, prepare for the week, start on a high note per se. And so that's what Monday became. My day, now that I've moved into the management role, the rest of my days are kind of consistent of working with our other management team to continue to coach them. It's built around coaching conversations with our agents and advisors currently in our office and helping them prepare, review. We call it PRPs. I won't throw too many acronyms, right? But the performance and review and the preparation of things. So that, along with, your typical corporate things of staff meeting and management meetings and things like that, ultimately are a little bit about what my week looks like. But I'll take just a second and say this. Ultimately, what I want you guys to understand about a day or a week with New York Life is, if I weren't in Texas right now and my 10-year-old likes to send me, these dire messages that something drastic has happened, like we're out of Frosted Flakes or something like that. But ultimately, if I needed to stop what I was doing and go fix something, if it was something that really needed to be fixed, I have the opportunity to go do that. I don't ask anybody. I don't necessarily have to tell anybody. But I do know that my job, my career is consistent on me getting things done. And so the self-discipline of just saying, hey, I've got to take this hour, I've got to take this afternoon, or I've got to take this morning to go do some of the things that, just moms and women have to do. I'm able to do that. And I don't have to clear that with anybody. And so to then also be disciplined enough to say, now I have to come back and get my job done. That's the flexibility. That's the control of the schedule that ultimately I was looking for all along and found in this career.
Great. That's also why you became a manager, that self-discipline. Okay. Roseanne, what about you? What does a typical day or week look like for you?
So I was very fortunate. New York Life offers so many different tools for us to use that I took advantage of the study group. So my Monday morning, kind of like Shannon says, starts on a high note. I start with my study group first thing on Monday morning. What is the goal? What is the plan? How are we going to do this? Our study group, there are 7 women and 1 man. Yes, we torture him, but he's wonderful. And kind of what's the game plan? And we really push each other and motivate each other. And it's even our moment to say, this happened this weekend personally, and I just need to cry, and I need y'all to tell me how to let it go, kind of thing. So starting with Monday on a high note, then going into kind of like Shannon said, Monday, nobody wants to hear from us. So it's kind of the admin day. What needs to be cleaned up? What clients I need to reach out to? What documents do I need to get to New York Life? Kind of that. And then Tuesday, I start my appointments, start making my phone calls, start reaching out to my clients, and kind of go through that. Friday, everybody's ready for the weekend, so I try not to bother people on Friday. It's kind of the same thing if a client wants to meet with me, or more of the cleaning up admin. And ironically, Saturdays is when I have my most success on making phone calls. So Saturday mornings from 10 to 12 is when I make my calls to clients, because they're kind of at home, they'll answer. They haven't really started their day. By noon, they want to go enjoy the family. So just really kind of sticking with my schedule and following through with the things that New York Life taught us. One thing I learned really early was, again, because of my photography background, I had no experience in this, and they told me, do not reinvent the wheel. So my manager said, do this. So I did exactly that, and been very fortunate to have a lot of success from listening to them.
Great. Ronnie, what about you and your weekday?
This is interesting that there's a lot of similarities in our workday. As an agent, a typical day for me is I get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I work out. I'm out the door by 6 o'clock, and I just walk 3 to 5 miles. I have a walking buddy. That's my accountability partner. But then I come home, I journal, I give Jehovah my full devotion. Then I shower, and I really do prepare for the day. Typically, I have 2 appointments set a day. I have committed to making at least 20 to 25 calls a day. And those calls vary. I check on my friends, my family. I call my clients. I ask for referrals. I'm not ashamed. I serve well, so I'm not ashamed to ask for referrals. But then I set at least 2 future appointments. And then, of course, in between that, I can relate to what Shannon said with the flexibility, because I can drop off and pick up my 15-year-old daughter, whether it's at school or for the summer, she's been doing wrestling boot camp. So I'll take her to the wrestling boot camp, pick her up. And then, of course, for me, I attend educational meetings to expand my knowledge on financial concepts and ideas that may be beneficial to me, to my clients, and my prospects. And then as long as I have had a productive day, and a productive day meaning I've accomplished all that I mentioned at first, then and only then I reward myself with being able to watch television. Okay, that is it. I love movies. I love TV series, but that is a reward for the productive work that I do. If I don't do my productivity things, I do not get a chance to enjoy a movie. So once a month, also, in addition to my work, once a month, I make sure that I am at an event where I'm hosting, or maybe I'm at a board meeting that I need to attend every single month. And so thankfully, my mother does the cooking. My family does not want me to cook. So thankfully, my mom does the cooking and prepares the meals for the family. And so my children, they help with the cleaning. So we really do work as a team. day to day. So that's what it looks like for me. I manage both the work that I have to do for income and then my creative work. And of course, making sure that I'm giving my family the time that they need.
This is all very interesting. I love hearing about the variety of your days. And that, I think, is a good segue into the next question, which is often associated with the concept of flexibility, work-life balance. It's just a phrase that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. There's strong reactions to it. What do you think is a misconception that may exist around work-life balance? And relatedly, are there any boundaries that you've used to separate your work and personal or family time? Let's start with Roseanne.
So I think when a lot of people come into this career, I've met many agents come and go, unfortunately, they have the honey-do list. You make your own schedule now. So if your honey says go do this or go do that, you have time. And we have flexibility. However, we still are trying to run a career. We still want to be very successful. So we have to balance that. I mean, where I live and where I work is about a 40-minute commute. So my husband's like, well, since you're in town, can you do X, Y, Z? And I'm like, no, I am working. So this is my work time. And I'll let him know if I get done with clients by this time, then I'm happy to run it. But we have to kind of put borders with our family. Let them know, yes, I have flexibility, but not for careless things. Not just to run and get you a gallon of milk, even though we might do that at the end of the day kind of thing. But it's just making sure that we let our families know and also ourselves. I'm very big on following with my calendar. If I say I'm going to do this at this time, I'm going to do it. I schedule in picking up my kids from school when I did that, or I schedule in things. And if it's on my calendar, that's time is set for them. But we have to balance that. And a lot of times people come into this business. I've seen wonderful people come in that I assumed would have been extremely successful, that because of their honey-do list or because the freedom, instead of waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, like most of us successful agents have, they wake up at 9 because they don't have an appointment until 12. Well, that doesn't work. I've always told people when I started in the business, I worked an average of 15 hours a week because I had little kids. But those 15 hours, I was working. I did my classes, I did what I had to do, and then I made my calls. And people were like, well, no, you didn't work 15 hours. I'm like, if I worked at McDonald's, would they pay me to be at home watching videos? No. Would somebody pay me to go to college? No. They would pay me when I was making my calls, meeting my clients, getting my stuff done. So if I want to make $50,000 a year, what I do represents that. If I want to make $100,000 a year, my time represents that. And similar to these other young ladies, I'm sure we've gotten to the point where we're making more because we've built up to that. But when you start, you have to prioritize and let your family know, yes, I have this flexibility. However, I'm still trying to build my career. And we got to balance that.
I've never heard the phrase honeydew. I love it though.
All the time.
Relate. Ronnie, what about you? How do you set boundaries? How do you think about work-life balance?
Yeah, no, I love this question. And for me, like you said, this means a lot to different people. But for me, I think the biggest misconception is that there needs to be a separation of work and family time, right? Like I put this stop and then you put your family hat. No, like I am the same person for work as I am for my family. And so I've learned to talk to my family about my work. I work from home, so they hear my meetings, they see the passion around what it is that I do. But I talk to them. I talk to them about how I help someone today. I share with them what I'm learning. I bring them along the journey with me. And so when I'm running for a specific goal for the month or for the quarter or for the year, I share my goals, my wins, even my disappointments. They're my family, they're my lifeline, they're my rock. And it creates this environment of open communication. And it even provides this equal exchange for us all to talk about matters that come up. But I don't know about you all. I didn't talk about money conversations growing up. And so it crippled me to some degree. So I knew that I made up my mind that once I learned this information, my mind was expanded. I was promised to myself that I wasn't going back. But I started in my own home. And so we do fun things together, right? We go to the movies, we have our ice cream, we wrestle, go to wrestling events, sporting events, dancing, stage plays. I love all that stuff. We go out, we eat, we read books, we talk about it together, we share our visions for our future. But one of the boundaries that I did set is I only have one evening that I have late meetings. That's Thursday night. Any other day, I'm off by 5 o'clock. I do not work on Sundays, but also I talk to my clients about my family and any upcoming events that we have going on. That way they know, and it's celebrations as well, and the family goals that we have. This literally does humanize me, right? And it allows my clients to see me as more than just their agent, more than just their financial services resource. I become their friend and their confidant. And that's what helps me to keep things in balance, if you will.
That's very interesting. I also talk to my family about work, and I do think it helps to help set boundaries with them so they understand what you're doing. Shannon, what about you? How do you set boundaries, and what do you think about work-life balance?
Well, so let me give you a couple of things that I wrote down that I just wanted to be able to remember, and then I'll kind of tie everything up that I think Ronnie and Roseanne both said. I've always said that flexibility can be a two-edged sword. It is what can bring you into this business, but it is also what can quickly take you out of this business. And that self-discipline, I think, is what makes the difference in people that are successful in this business, and a lot of times people that are unsuccessful, not just in this industry, but just in careers in general. But a lot of times when you have the opportunity to set your own schedule, to have the flexibility that our career allows, if that's not coupled with an understanding of self-discipline, it normally just doesn't make for a successful career. So flexibility, I've always said when I explain flexibility and that opportunity within this career, I've always said that it's a two-edged sword. Again, can bring you in, and that's what people look for, but also can take you right back out if you're not disciplined with it. The other thing, to Roseanne's point, I think it was Roseanne that said, she was able to work 15 hours. Don't confuse motion with progress. And there's a lot of busy work in this business, right? There's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of things that are needed in this business, but there's also money-making activity in this business. And so ultimately, if you can put 30 hours into this business, and a true 30 hours into this business on a weekly basis, you have to be honest with yourself, right? You have to be honest with what you're doing with your time, because there's busy work that you can spend your time doing that's not actually allowing you to make this a successful career when it comes to providing for your family and the reasons why you're wanting to make money, right? So those are two things that I'll just, again, flexibility can be the two-edged sword. Don't confuse motion with progress. Now back to your question real quick. Don't shoot the messenger, right? This is just my opinion. I don't know that I believe that work-life balance exists in the way that we think, or with the way that we thought that it existed. And here's what I mean by that. All right, give me a chance to explain. Here's what I mean by that. I think, right, and obviously the field that we're in, we deal with insurance and investments and those types of money conversations. We think that work-life balance is supposed to be this split, right? When we talk to people about investments, it's like, well, hey, do you want to be 50-50? Do you want to be 60-40? Do you want to be 70-30? And then we think about that, or I did at least, of a work-life balance, that things were supposed to be 50-50, or they were supposed to be this percentage, and it was supposed to be set in stone. And guys, that just was not reality for me, right? Every week looked different. There may be times that work is heavier balanced, right? It's always like this for me. And so work sometimes would be a little bit heavier. Next week it's a catch-up week for me, being back in the office, and we have a big mid-year kickoff, and we have so many things that are going on that unfortunately there's going to be some times where work overlaps. And so for me, it was rhythm. Again, maybe that was just my play on words, but for me, it was a rhythm of just understanding that life and work kind of go hand in hand with each other, with us all being professional women in professional careers and also raising a family. I do think you have to separate them, certainly, and not let them bleed together too much. But, again, allowing your family to know what it is that you do. Look, my child's my biggest advocate at school, about New York life. She can tell you more about New York life than I can sometimes. So anyway, I believe, look, I love the perception of work-life balance. I just believe that it's not a set percentage that you can have. I think that there are some times where family comes completely, here we say, I guess family comes first all the time, but I'm just saying in a general week, there may be times where I spend a little more time at work than I typically would, but then my goal is to make that up and have a difference and try to balance it out like that with a rhythm of things rather than thinking of it as a hard percentage per se.
Yeah, I really relate to that. I mean, some weeks it's emergency room and some weeks it's emergency at work. So that's great. And what you said about the double-edged sword of flexibility is sort of the next topic I want to explore with you all. I know, Ronnie, you work remotely. You said that you work from home. And one of the challenges that can come with remote working is time management. It can also happen when you're not working remotely, obviously. But what strategies do you use and would you recommend to other women who work remotely when it comes to prioritizing your time and tracking what you're doing with it?
Yeah. No, and this was probably the most challenging part of my career with New York Life is time management. I am a creative at heart. All right. So I'm the one who sees the shiny thing and I'm totally distracted and I'm chasing after that shiny thing. So time management was critical for me. So I learned to carve out time. Okay. I learned to carve out time and I leverage Outlook. Outlook manages my day. It is my calendar, it's my Bible. I live by it. And I remember when I first started with New York Life, my partner at the time said, Ronnie, you really need to run your New York Life business like an actual business, right? And he referenced my experience with a primary physician. You know how when you call the doctor to set up the appointment, what do? They give you an appointment around the physician's calendar of appointments, their schedule. So I had to quickly implement this process. And so now if my client or my prospects have questions or they want to meet, I can provide them the times that I'm available, right? And the only reason why I know what times I'm available is because I design my calendar. So as the other ladies mentioned, Monday is my admin day. I handle all of my underwriting needs, any outstanding paperwork, emails, voicemails, et cetera. And then appointments are set Tuesday through Friday. From 11 a.m. to 9 a.m. I'm sorry, from 9 to 11 a.m. is when I have my first set of appointments. I schedule my lunch break from 12 to 1:30, and this is Central Standard Time, just in case I want to go out for lunch or maybe have lunch with my friends and my family. And then the next slot of meetings is from 2 to 5, right? So, and then Thursday is my late day, so I work all the way up until 8 p.m. For my evening folks. And then Friday, I'm off at 2, so I can get my hair done at 2:30, right? These are the things that I have to do to balance my lifestyle. So the moment I took ownership of my calendar, I felt free to manage my day as I saw fit. I felt like a real boss, you know? So that's what I had to incorporate into my business.
Great. Shannon, what about you? Are you a calendar junkie?
I am. I hate to admit that I have my Outlook calendar. We have something else that is in Sales Central. It's Salesforce, but I have a calendar within it. I have a paper calendar because I'm still very old school when it comes to like I need to see it and check it off kind of thing. So for me, I need to. I'm a check the list type person. Right. And I need that. I need to be able to look at the end of my day and go, okay, I accomplished everything that I set out to accomplish. Or if I didn't, is there time that I can do that before I leave? Or is there time that I can allocate to that the next morning to be able to get back into it? I will say, I think COVID created an issue for me. I'm kind of hybrid right now as far as work from home, some go into the office some, and thankfully, our company allows us to be able to do that. The issue I had with being at home was I never left work, right? It was upstairs. And so at 8 o'clock, I could think of an email that I needed to go send. You guys know, I should have left that for 8 o'clock the next morning, but I didn't. I ran back upstairs and what was going to be a quick email turns into an hour or so. And so just for me coming through COVID, and even on the other side of it, hopefully, has been the attention to following and using a calendar to truly be able to say, all right, I've got everything done. Let me now walk away and feel comfortable walking away.
Great advice. Roseanne, what about you? What strategies are you using to prioritize your time and track it?
So similar to Shannon and Ronnie, I follow a calendar. So I learned really early on to have my calendar. Mine is Outlook, similar to Ronnie's. And I start the week and I put in my family stuff first. Those things are not going to be moved, whether it was my grandbaby's soccer, thing, or a doctor's appointment, or whatever. Family stuff first. Then my study group time goes in there. They're the ones who motivate me and lift me up. So I'll start with that. And then everything else. So I'm actually in my home office. This was a guest room. And because I was working from home with COVID and, you're in a room and you would get groggy and, you can go do laundry and go do different things. I decided to remodel this so it looked like an office. So it made me feel like an office. And I check in and I check out. Similar to Shannon said, I was, because it was just a room I was working in, I was there all hours of the night. And my husband would even get annoyed with me. So I'm like, okay, I'm coming in at 7:30 in the morning and I am leaving at 5. Unless obviously I have something else scheduled, but just prioritizing that. I go to my office in Tyler usually 2 to 3 times a week. And then I work from home twice a week, but in my office. When I'm outside of this door, my kids know I'm on mama duty. When I'm inside, I'm working. I really, with my accountability, I keep my kids included. So one of the things that we strive at New York Life is 2 appointments for sometime in the future. So they ask me, Mom, did you make your 2 appointments? And if they don't ask me, did I make my 2 appointments? They don't get the vacations. That's kind of the trade-off. So I will provide vacations. You provide accountability and making sure Mom is doing what she's supposed to do. So if I haven't made my 2 appointments, they're like, go to the office, go get back to work. Because it's a bonus for them. So keeping them involved, making sure that I'm staying on my calendar and including what's my family, including my business, and just staying on track just helps me get it all done.
And for all of you, I think it's helpful to your children to see you as role models, as professional women, right? It's great. Okay, we're going to take a audience question now. I think it is Danielle who asks, she says, COVID's greatly increased flexibility at my job, but it's also greatly reduced my opportunity to network. And I was never very good at that. So do you see virtual networking as viable? And what are some ways to do it well? And this is a question for anybody who feels comfortable with an idea or suggestion for Danielle.
Well, I'll jump right in there. Virtual networking events are powerful for me. I think I call myself an extreme extrovert. And when COVID shut everything down and I was isolated, it really took its toll on my mental state. And so the virtual events are helpful. And one, it allows me to meet people naturally, organically. And then it puts me in a place of being a resource. If I can help someone that I met in the group, or maybe we can be a referral source for one another, right? It helps because not everyone is comfortable meeting in person as of yet. And so we have to maximize these virtual events to stay connected to people. And again, serve and be a resource. So that's my thought.
I will agree with Ronnie on that. I am a hugger, so I always want to hug my friends, my family, my clients. So not being able to be around people and it's only virtual, it has made things different. However, seeing a person smile and having the conversation and hearing about their family, people still want to do that. Mm-hmm. So whatever group you find or whatever way you find of networking, people just seeing you out there makes them attracted to you. So whatever we can do to be in the front lines for people and answer questions and just say hello makes them want to get to know you more, especially because we can't do the hug or the things that we're used to in the past. So yeah, highly encourage them as well.
I would just piggyback off that and just say, I think it was Danielle that asked the question. I would, if it's virtual, right? Obviously, the virtual aspect of networking is totally different than the expressives that I think we all are on this. I would try to take the virtual offline. And what I mean by that is if you can connect with somebody, if it's a group setting, a virtual setting, whatever platform you may be using, if you can then find a way to then connect, even still virtually, but maybe one-on-one with that person, schedule an outside meeting with that person, those sorts of things. And, it's hard with a group setting sometimes to narrow it down to the ones that you really want to feel like you can develop a relationship with. But I would say try to pick those people out, 2 or 3, whatever however large the group may be, maybe 1 or 2, and then try to connect with them outside of that group. If you guys share emails or share phone numbers or whatever that may be, to then connect more on that personal level. Because I think that's what we're missing, is the virtual platform doesn't give us that connection that we feel like we were able to get in an in-person type setting.
Great. Okay, now back to work. What resources or tools does New York Life provide you that you rely on to be successful in your business? And I'll start with you, Roseanne.
So I take advantage of all the resources. New York Life did not hold back. So we have wonderful development managers. We have wonderful consultants. I mean, anytime I have any case, I will call my internal consultants. I'm like, this is the situation. This is what they need. Create it. They're the best of the best. Why am I going to do the heavy lifting, right? So I let them use it. We have an advanced planning group. So when I work with higher net worth clients, I'm like, hey, we got these people. Let them come in, do all the heavy lifting, and I just smile and let them do what they do best. Sales Central, like Shannon mentioned earlier, it's a wonderful tool that New York Life brought in. I use it to keep notes. I use it to track my calendar. I use it for just everything. They're constantly offering different meetings to keep us up to date. What's changing, because the world is changing daily. So I don't go to all the meetings, but I pick and choose the ones that I think would help benefit my clients, help me grow, constantly doing that. They offer a bunch of ways for us to learn. I mean, right now I'm trying to get my Series 7, and New York Life is paying for that. And that's a tool that they're giving me to be a better agent. So why not utilize the tools that they're giving us to be our best us? And then finally, study groups. New York Life encourages study groups. I cannot brag enough on my study group, but they're constantly doing incentives for your study group to grow together and to help each other and to motivate each other. So, but yeah, New York Life gives us so many tools that I think if you're not utilizing it, you're missing out on what makes a great agent. I mean, our staff is, I would say, the best of the best, and I was not paid to say that, but I use them all. Everybody thinks I'm such a great agent, and it's not me. It's the people behind me making me look good, and I give them all the credit. So we have it all. We have it all.
Great. Ronnie, do you have anything to add to that?
Listen, I was over here just nodding my head because everything Roseanne said is exactly what I was going to say, from even down to the development managers, right? And so I agree with, I ditto everything that Roseanne just said. And for me, the only thing that I would add is the second most important tool is Sales Central. And I think Shannon mentioned this briefly earlier, but this system allows me to manage my clients and my prospects in one centralized location, right? Where I can track my marketing efforts, my calls, my appointments. And as a business owner, I value being able to have a streamlined system for free. I don't pay for this, that I can use to help me track the progress. And it'll highlight where I need to pivot and make changes in the business to see different results. But I agree completely. I too am studying for my Series 7, and which would allow me to be more of a resource in my community. And New York Life is paying for all of this stuff, the training material that we need. And again, I mentioned earlier, financial education was not something that was passed down to me from my parents. I am literally learning and growing in this process every single day. And the fact that New York Life pours this information into me absolutely for free, I mean, how could you lose? You just cannot lose. And so I agree, although I get a lot of praise for being a great agent and successful agent and leader boards and other stuff, and it's truly because of the backing that New York Life has given me.
It's great to hear. Okay, switching topics a little bit. Shannon, I'd love to hear from you about what your go-to stress relief activity or routine may be. I mean, you clearly work very hard, thinking about your 8 p.m. running upstairs to the office. What do you do when you're trying to turn off?
I I truly, I do work out. It may not look like it, right? But I do work out. I have had a broken leg, unfortunately, from snow skiing, which is a whole nother story in itself. But I do. Probably my biggest ability to walk away is to put headphones in, to listen to music, to just get in something that's just for me, right? Just something where I can just do something for Shannon. It's also, and I'll be very brief in my answer, it's also a golf cart ride. And what I mean by that is I have neighbors that every neighborhood that I've lived in, from Mississippi to Knoxville now, has been where we could, get to know our neighbors, and we get close enough that it's, we know if we've had a bad day, we know if we've had something stressful, we know if something, and the neighbors will text and say, golf cart ride, right? And so anyway, it's just to get out, right? Just to not sit and marinate in it, but to get out and have that girl talk, have somebody that you can confide in. And so those are kind of my go-to things. So I'll keep it brief.
All right. Ronnie, what about you?
Oh yeah. So for me, my workout is one of the best stress relievers. Watching a good movie, dancing, skating, going out with my friends for some girl time, some laughs and drinks. And then I truly believe my husband is an undercover comedian, so he makes me laugh in those moments that I want to cry.
That's great. It is hard, and I think women particularly experience burnout. There's a lot of studies and headlines that suggest that women feel extremely burned out, particularly coming out of the pandemic and during the pandemic. So it's important to find ways to relieve stress. At Fairygodboss, we have a tradition. We have observed that many professional women do not feel as comfortable as professional men typically about in terms of taking ownership of all the amazing things that we achieve. And you could call it bragging, but please share with us an accomplishment, personal or professional, that you're most proud of, because we believe that practice makes perfect when it comes to feeling more comfortable with tooting our own horns. Roseanne, I'm going to start with you.
So when I came into the company, a goal was to write 100 cases. The partner that brought me in wasn't with the company, or left very quick after coming in. So I didn't know that was the goal. And I finished my first year at 98 cases. And I lost to a guy who wrote 101. And I'm like, I didn't know that was a goal. I could have written 3 more cases. So the next year I'm like, okay, that's not going to happen again. So I worked really hard. And then the next year I wrote 112, and I lost to the same guy because he wrote like 115. And I'm like, no, I'm a woman. I'm strong. I can do this. So the next year I brought my A game, and I actually started working, is what I tell people. And ever since, I've averaged anywhere from 150 to 250 cases a year. In our Dallas office, I actually have been the case rate leader for 8 consecutive years.
Wow.
It's always been given to a new agent. And they actually had to create another award because I keep on winning it, and I'm not letting these new agents catch up. So now there's one for established agents and one for new org agents, which never been done before. I've broken the record in the Dallas office. I've broken my record 6 times for beating what I've done in the past. And I keep on going. I mean, everybody says, would you slow down so somebody can catch up? And I'm like, no, that's no fun. So now I'm competing against me, and my goal is 10 years. And then when I get to 10 years, it'll be 20 years, but it's just being my best me. So it's something I'm very proud of, because for every time I write a policy, every time I write a case, that's a new person I get to help. That's a new family I got to impact. And that's a new legacy that I'm leaving for the next generation. So it's not just the award, it's making a change. I mean, the goal in 10 years is to have 500 clients, and I'm at year 12 and I'm sitting at 4,800 clients, and I'm still growing. Everybody tells me, how do you manage them? I have a team. I got, people in the background doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but just to know that I'm doing that is important to me. And we don't get to brag on it because some people think it's arrogance. So to be able to say that I've worked really hard to be better, it's wonderful. And yeah, a guy challenged me, and it just pushed me to a new level.
Congratulations, Roseanne. Seriously, very impressive.
Thank you.
Ronnie, what about you? What are you most proud of?
Yeah, so I am most proud of my life now. I have finally come out of darkness of my past, and I'm intentionally pursuing the life that I truly desire personally, professionally, and creatively. Through my writing and acting, I'm tapping into my creative expression, and through financial education, I'm doing my part to close the racial wealth gap in this country. And by maintaining a supportive, peaceful home, I'm an example for my kids of how to maintain healthy relationships. And so I recently hit a council goal within New York Life 2 years in a row. I've only been with New York Life for 2 years. So to be able to do that every year that I've been with the company is great, which will open up new opportunities for my career, I've been told. But I also have a film that I produce that's premiering in film festivals all over the world right now, not just here in the US, but in France, it just premiered. And I'm also celebrating 2 years of marriage this past weekend, just made 2 years. And so, like Roseanne, I am competing with me. I'm no longer comparing myself to others, and it feels absolutely great. And I can thank New York Life for this experience.
That's awesome. So that is a good segue into my next question, which is to Shannon. What would you say to women who are considering joining New York Life as a financial professional or manager?
Yeah, I'd say do it. I know it's easier. I know it's easier for us to sit on this side of the table necessarily and say that. But I can remember the fear, even though it was 14 years ago. I can remember the fear factor that was there, the unknown, oh gosh, this is so different than what I've been doing. Can I take this risk? And you're calculating a risk and the reward and all of those sorts of things. And I would say, get out of your head, get out of your head, stop the negative self-talk that we all probably do for ourselves and do it. Certainly, obviously, hear me say, you've got to have a lot of thought and prayer and however you make decisions. I would include your spouse, your significant other, if there is one. The three things real quick that I tell people to really think about in coming on board with New York Life is it the right timing, right? Personally, professionally, whatever you need to evaluate. Is it the right time? Is it, do I have that supportive spouse, right? Not necessarily financially, but just is my spouse supportive, or that significant other who I'm going to spend my future with? Are they supportive of me making a decision like this? Because you need to be built up when you go home. You don't need to be torn down when you go home. And then the third thing is, it the right company? Am I going to get the tools, the resources? Do I feel surrounded by the right people, the right culture? All of those things. Are those three things aligning? And in my opinion, those are the three things that ultimately could be roadblocks for somebody if you can't say yes to all three of those.
Great. Very practical and helpful. Roseanne, what about you? What advice or what would you say to women who are considering joining New York Life?
So a lot of partners usually ask me to interview a prospect before they bring them on. And what do you think, Roseanne? Do you think they'll make it or not? And the question I always ask them is, if this doesn't work, what is your backup plan? And if they can immediately answer that question, I tell them this is not for them. You cannot come into this business with the idea, if this doesn't work, I'll do this. This job, it's sales. It's not easy. But if you come into it ready to put 100%, ready to come into it with no backup plan. Because anything, if I say I'm going to try to swim, but if it doesn't work, well, then I'll try to ski, I'm not going to learn to swim because I already planning for the next thing. So if you want to do this, if this is an idea, if you want the success that we've had, jump in head first with no backup plan. You'll do great.
I love it. That's amazing, Roseanne. I think I never thought about risk taking in that way, but I think, oh, look, Ronnie's giving you a virtual high five. Okay. As we're approaching the end of this hour, hard to believe, I want to make sure first to thank you, Ronnie, Shannon, Roseanne, for joining us today and sharing such fantastic advice. I'm going to there's one quick audience question that I want to tackle, and then we can wrap. This can be for anybody. Do you merge personal and work calendars into one? I love the specificity of this.
I think, I don't know if I'm speaking for all of us, but I think you have to. I mean, the flexibility that we have in this career is that we can take care of our family. We can do those things. Me, my family stuff is in my calendar first, and those are in marker. And then everything else goes in there. So I have to, because life happens. Now, sometimes things get changed. Sometimes you have an emergency with the client, and sometimes you have an emergency with the family. But I think if you keep them separate, you're missing out on the wonderful opportunity we have here. I mean, we have the flexibility. And if you're trying to keep them separate, that's a 9-to-5 job that you work at other places. So I think, in my opinion, they're going to be merged, and you're going to make them work.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I wouldn't have separate calendars. I would have them merged together. And I color code mine. And the things that are absolutes, the things that can't be changed, those are in red. And so much of the time, those are the personal things, right? That it's the family time, the doctor's appointments, the spiritual time, the things that are just family related. Those are things I just can't move. Those are non-negotiables. Everything else can be in yellow or green as opportunities that I can be flexible with, but family time is just not always flexible.
Yes, I used to feel uncomfortable writing in exactly what it was and would write personal, but now I just stopped caring. That was too complicated. I just now write, and I think it's important for the people who work on my teams to see that I have a personal life as well. So it's okay to put doctor's appointment or pick up this. It's fine. Okay, well, thank you again, Ronnie, Shannon, and Roseanne, for your fantastic advice. Thanks to everyone who's tuned in today. And as a reminder, we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar conversation, along with resources to learn more about opportunities at New York Life Agents. In the meantime, be sure to check out the New York Life Agents profile and page and jobs on the Fairygodboss site. Last but not least, we'd love to hear your feedback to help us improve future events. Please head to the Typeform tab on the right side of your screen and share your thoughts. It's a 1-minute survey, I promise. Thanks again, everybody, and we will see you next time.